The only text messages I ever get are either from my mom or it's an automatic reminder that my payment for my phone bill went through. I don't have any friends. I don't have any social connections. And that's how it's been for most of my life. A typical day for me throughout most of my adult life has been I wake up, take a shower, go to work, rot in front of a computer screen for 8 hours, usually not talking to anyone at all except for my boss who would say good morning. Then I'd go home and rot in front of a computer some more until I passed out. And the next day I would repeat the whole process again. Maybe I would go to the gym or something during certain periods of my life, but socializing was never part of my daily life. And that was back in the day when I had a job. I've been unemployed for years now, or unemployed for most of the past, I don't know, 7 years, I think. So I don't even get that basic socializing that happens at work anymore. Not that that counted for much, anyways, but this goes way back for me. Being alone and never having anyone to talk to is something I've been dealing with my entire life. And it has messed me up inside in a lot of ways. I know everybody feels lonely sometimes, but most people don't really know what it's like when you literally have no social connections at all. I don't get invited to things, and I can count on one hand the number of times that I have been invited to something, and with most of those, it ended up being cursed anyways. Like the time I got invited to a party in high school, and then a whole room full of people ended up laughing at me while this one guy was picking on me. I told that story, I think, in the very first video I ever posted on this channel. But yeah, I don't get invited to things. I don't have anyone to talk to other than my parents. But it's not like I can really talk to my parents about certain things. I am grateful to have them. I'm grateful to have parents that I mostly get along with. A lot of people don't even have that. But that's not the same as having friends. It's not the same as having peers around my same age to talk to things about. It's just not the same. I'm actually doing a lot better for the past year and a half or so since I've been taking care of my baby cousin. If you don't know, my mom is the legal guardian for my little cousin, and I live with my mom, so I'm pretty much his primary caretaker along with my mom. I know it's a really unusual situation, and it's not a situation I ever would have chose to be in, but spending so much time with him has actually been really good for my mental health, I think. Because before he was born, I would go full days sometimes without ever even saying a single word out loud. Actually, a lot of my days were like that. So it's actually changed my life a lot just having him around. It gives me someone to talk to, even if he is a toddler and, he can't really have a conversation exactly. But I am still very isolated socially. I still don't have any friends. I still don't ever communicate with actual peers. So I still got some problems. But before my cousin was born, I'm pretty sure most days I literally never talked to another human being at all, except for maybe my dad, who I was living with at the time. But most days I didn't even talk to him. I just sat inside my room at my computer all day. Because, I mean, what reason did I have to go outside? I didn't have anybody that wanted to see me. And I already know from experience that most people just don't like me. Or even if they would like me, my social anxiety always prevents me from speaking up. So it always just felt pointless. Even today, it just feels pointless. Whether that's true or not, that's how it feels. And you can't just change your mindset by snapping your fingers. That's not the way it works. The way I feel about myself is based on a lifetime of lived experience. That's not something you can just fake it till you make it away. You can't just delude yourself. You can't change your mindset. I know some of you that have been following my channel for a while might be thinking, well, what about Jamal? Isn't Jamal your friend? Well, I did kind of have a friend recently with Jamal, but I'm pretty sure that just petered out. It's run its course. I really don't see us ever hanging out again. Honestly, we never had that much in common, anyways. Our conversation was always very superficial. He's cool. I wish him the best. But yeah, it's just run its course. But most of my life, even going back to my childhood, I was just always alone. I did try hanging out with other kids when I was really young, like around, I don't know, 9, 10, something like that. And my mom used to babysit kids from the neighborhood, so I was around other kids sometimes. But even back then, I was always an outsider. I think I've told this story before, but there was a group of kids in my neighborhood that I hung out with a few times, but I'm pretty sure they never actually wanted me around. They just didn't know how to tell me to go away at first. I would just go outside when I saw them out there and I would try to ride bikes with them or whatever they were doing. It's not like they ever came and knocked on my door and asked me to come out. But, anyways, there was one time when one of those kids came in my house to play PlayStation. I had the Pizza Hut demo disc with Tony Hawk Pro Skater. So we played that for a while. And then I wanted to show him another demo I had that I thought was even better. It was Legend of Legaia. Great game, by the way. And he started playing it while I was hyping it up like, dude, it's so awesome. It's so unique. There's no other game like this. Which is still true to this day, by the way. As far as I know, nobody ever made another game with a battle system quite like Legend of Legaia. Other than, there's a sequel, but other than that, there's no game like it. But, anyways, he played it for like 5 minutes, if that. And then he said, "This game is gay." And I think I said something like, "No, you're gay." And then we got in a fight. And by fight, I mean he sat on top of me until I cried and I screamed. And then he got up and left. Then the next time I tried to go hang out with the neighborhood kids, they all made fun of me and they wouldn't let me hang out. And that was probably the closest I ever came to having a group of friends. I was already pretty shy back then, but I think it was experiences like that that really took my social anxiety to the next level. That just really cemented in my mind, okay, I'm an outsider. I'm different. The things I like is not what normal people like. Like, I just don't fit in. It just doesn't work for me. But I wouldn't say I was actually picked on a lot growing up. I was never really bullied. I mean, there was instances here and there, but for the most part, I was always just an outsider. People just didn't care about me, didn't care to get to know me. And I've always been super shy. Imagine social anxiety disorder cranked up to 11. That was me for most of my life. Nowadays, I'd say my social anxiety is probably a 8 out of 10 because it's not quite as bad now as it used to be. But still, I couldn't even imagine trying to initiate a friendship, especially at my age. Like, how would you even go about making friends as a 37-year-old man? There's no way. I know people make friends through work, and that is how I met Jamal, who I guess is kind of a friend. Although, like I say, I'm pretty sure that's run its course by now. But the thing is, I have worked several different jobs throughout my life, and I never made any friends at any of those jobs, unless you count Jamal. So I guess it's possible, but it's obviously just extremely unlikely. I can't get a job anyway, so it's not like that's even an option. From what I hear, I actually think it's pretty common for a man my age to not have any social connections unless they're married. So I know there's a lot of you out there that can relate, but it really does suck sometimes when you have a really interesting thought or you see something really cool and naturally you want to share that. I think that's just human nature to want to put your thoughts out there, get some feedback maybe. But when you don't have any friends, you just can't do that. There's nobody to talk to. Nowadays, I kind of fulfill that need with these videos, but back in the day, I used to cope by posting on forums, which was a pretty good cope, honestly. It's nowhere near as good as actually having a real life friend to talk to, but it was better than nothing. But you can't even do that anymore. The internet has fully regressed from a facilitator of free speech and open discussion into the most censored piece of shit. Modern forums, which is basically just Reddit, is more censored than cable television these days. You can't hardly talk about anything. Same with YouTube. There's certain topics you just cannot talk about freely on here unless you agree 100% with mainstream corporate America. So it would be nice to have a social circle in real life so I could actually talk about some of the thoughts I have bouncing around my head. But I don't have that, and I never have. But back to the topic of how there are a lot of guys my age that don't have a social circle these days. I'm pretty sure most of those guys have had a group of friends at some point. Most of those guys did at least have friends back in their school days. I remember back in high school, even the most antisocial losers had friends. I wasn't the only outcast, but all the other outcasts were friends with each other. So in a way, I was the only outcast, I guess. I was an outcast to the outcasts, even. There was one other guy in my grade that was in a similar situation where I don't think he had any friends. And as far as I could tell, he also had really bad social anxiety, just like me. I didn't even know the guy. I mean, maybe that's kind of obvious considering we both had crippling social anxiety. But I did find comfort in the fact that at least there was someone else that was as big a loser as I was. But then, get this, senior year rolls around, and apparently this other outcast guy got some girl pregnant. So maybe he wasn't that big an outcast after all. You know, I guess I was the only one. But yeah, social isolation really sucks. And it really takes a toll on you mentally, especially at a young age. That's why I think, even though there are a lot of men in their 30s and 40s and older that don't have any social connections, most of those men did have social connections in their youth. So it still sucks, obviously. I'm not trying to downplay anybody's experience. Obviously, it still sucks to not have any friends, even if you used to be a social butterfly. But I do think there is something uniquely fucked up about never having had any friends in your childhood. I mean, just think about how usually homeschooled kids are pretty weird. I'm sure if you've ever met anyone that was homeschooled, you probably notice there's something odd about the way that they are. Usually, not necessarily in every case, but it's kind of the same thing. A kid that never had any friends is going to be missing out on all the foundational social experiences, and he's just going to be very under socialized. He's not going to know how to talk to people. It just screws you up mentally. And it's hard to ever correct course on that. A lot of people used to have a social circle in their youth, but then they get older, like into middle age, and then they struggle to maintain friendships. But there's not that many people that are the other way around, where they didn't have a social circle in their youth, but then they get older and then somehow they manage to make friends at that point. I'm sure it happens, but it's probably very, very rare. Most people that don't have any friends growing up are just never going to have any friends. Another thing about not having any friends that I think gets overlooked sometimes is that just from the lack of regular social interaction, your mental state starts to deteriorate. I think if you go without friends during your formative years, then you just don't develop properly to begin with. But when you go without friends as an adult, especially in a situation like mine where I've been unemployed for so long, you really do deteriorate in more ways than one. Your social skills deteriorate. Your ability to think deteriorates. Like literally you lose IQ points. I'm not even joking. I'm not basing this off any scientific studies or anything, but I'm pretty sure that's what's happening to me. Because think about it. When you've got nobody to talk to, nobody inviting you to go do anything, and you just stay in your room all the time, alone, you're just rotting. Your brain never experiences novel situations. You don't have to solve problems. You just rot. Obviously, it depends. Like, if you're actively reading calculus textbooks or doing brain teasers for fun, then in that case, you'd probably be keeping your brain pretty sharp. But realistically, most people are just going to rot when they don't have any social connections and they hardly ever leave the house. Because also, most people are going to be depressed in that situation, which saps your energy even more. So you're probably not going to feel like exercising your brain too much. Think about like in Castaway, the movie with Tom Hanks. The guy gets stranded alone on an island, and I forget how long he's there for, but over time, he starts to lose his grip on reality. He starts talking to a volleyball like it's a person, and he really believes the volleyball is his friend. Obviously, I know that's just a movie, but I'm pretty sure that's not too far off from reality. I mean, it's basically like solitary confinement, which is known to have serious effects on a person's mental health. So obviously, just because you don't have any friends doesn't mean you're going to have it as bad as someone in solitary confinement. But I think it's probably safe to assume you would get some negative effects similar to solitary confinement or being stranded alone on a desert island. You will get some of those same effects from just not having any friends, just to a lesser degree. So it's not just that not having any friends means you have to feel sad and lonely all the time. That's not even the worst part. There are actual serious mental health consequences. I mean, maybe that's obvious to most people, but I think the average person doesn't realize just how serious it can be. Another thing is, there used to be a lot of online communities for lifelong friendless men. There was a label, Forever Alone, that basically was used to describe a guy that's never had any friends and never had any romantic partners. It was kind of like the I word is today, but it also explicitly was not used to describe a person if he also had friends. If you were forever alone, that meant you never had any friends. And nobody used forever alone as a slur like they do with the I word these days. But those communities are gone. I know there's still a forever alone subreddit, but just like any other subreddit, it's just a place for normies to LARP. I mean, really, the entire internet was pretty much a forever alone community back in the day, but now it's just a place for women to post selfies and normie dudes to post memes about basketball and The Office. The only way to find people I can even kind of relate to is looking through my own comment section, but even that is mostly normies. They just watch my videos for anthropological reasons, I guess. I don't really know. But all the internet stuff was always just cope, anyways. It's obviously not a replacement for real life socialization and real life friends, but it did at least used to be a good cope. Now it's a very, very bad cope. And there's explicit adult images freaking everywhere online these days. But the worst thing about the way the internet landscape has developed over the past 20 years, like I said, the internet used to be the stomping grounds for weird, lonely guys such as myself. But ever since social media took over, going into any kind of comment section or any sort of discussion thread, no matter what the topic is, even if it's like a Warhammer forum or something, something explicitly loser coded, it's always just normies. It's normies all around. People with friends, sex havers. These people could be talking to their real life friends, but they choose to also dominate the discussion in male loser spaces and push all the OGs like me to the outskirts because for some reason, some subset of normies these days sees the doomer inkwell lifestyle as an aesthetic that they want to adopt. It's like people that saw old pictures of punk rockers wearing those ripped denim jackets where they sew on all the patches for all the different bands they like. And then these insufferable normies try to appropriate that scene, but they can't help but prioritize the same exact fucking values as freaking Bank of America. So they end up putting pride flags and Black Lives Matter patches all over their jackets. I'm not even into that scene at all, but just using that as an example of how this society won't even let any kind of alternative collection of people exist without normies trying to take it over. And they're not just trying to take it over, they successfully take it over every single time. But okay, I'm getting way off track here. I just really resent the fact that the only cope I had turned into like the modern internet is just like going to a meetup for fans of The Office. It's the lamest people imaginable. And also it's just everybody. It's all the same people you'd see in real life when you go to work or you go grocery shopping or whatever. I hate it. I don't even fit in anywhere on the internet anymore because the internet is the same as real life now. Somebody should just unplug this shit. I'm considering opening up some kind of private forum for my Patreon supporters, but I have to look into what all the options are. I don't want to use Discord. I'd rather it be a forum, like a classic vBulletin style forum, but I don't know. I don't know really what's out there. But anyways, if you like the video or you feel like you got anything out of it, then please check out some of my other videos. There's also some secret videos you can watch for free on my Patreon, so check that out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.